Guys, imagine a place where, for the past 100 years, gunshots have been fired on the exact same day, at the exact same location, over and over again. But every time the police simply dismiss it as a matter of coincidence and close the case. Today, I've brought you a very unique Spanish movie with a fascinating story. So at the beginning of the movie, John is sitting in his car, waiting for his best friend Peter because the two of them are going to a surprise party today. During dinner, Peter is planning to propose to Andrea. Andrea calls John and tells him to pick up some champagne from the 24-hour shop on his way. As soon as Peter arrives, the two of them get out of the car. Peter shows John 2 rings and tells him that tonight he is going to put a ring on Andrea's finger and get engaged to her. They arrive at the gas station where the 24-hour shop is located. Peter goes inside to buy the champagne while John stays in the car waiting for him. He becomes a little emotional because deep down, he also has feelings for Andrea. Just then, a black car pulls up. A man gets out, pulls out a gun, walks into the shop, and starts shooting. The very next moment, he gets back into his car and drives away. Hearing the gunshots, John panics and rushes inside the shop. Inside, the shop owner is standing with a 10-year-old boy, while a Russian man is lying injured on the floor. Then John notices Peter lying there covered in blood. He immediately tells the shop owner to call an ambulance, and Peter is rushed to the hospital. 10 years have now passed since the incident. Now we meet Nico, who is standing outside the same 24-hour shop. Some senior boys from his school often bully him. This time, they tell Nico to go inside the shop and steal an adult magazine for them. Poor Nico is just about to head toward the shop when his mother, Lucia, arrives. She loves her son very much, so she takes him with her and leaves. Inside, the shop owner, Jimmy, keeps staring strangely at Nico. Meanwhile, in 2008, Peter has fallen into a coma because of the bullet wound to his head. His fiancée, Andrea, is completely devastated. Peter's brother, Paolo, explains that Peter is on a ventilator, and the doctors will only be able to give them a definite answer after conducting brain tests. John comforts Andrea and tells her that Peter will not die. In 2018, Lucia comes to pick Nico up from school and sees the same boys bullying him again. Lucia is a tough woman. She immediately runs toward them to protect her son, but as soon as the boys see her, they run away. Nico stops his mother. While driving home, Lucia tells Nico that he will have to learn how to defend himself. Otherwise, there will always be people in the world who will try to push him around. She threatens Nico that if he doesn't learn self-defense, she will teach those boys a lesson in her own way. After that, they arrive at the 24-hour shop. Lucia tells Nico that while she gets gas, he should go inside and get himself a milkshake. As soon as Nico enters the shop owner, Jimmy, starts staring at him. Nico goes to the magazine section, picks up an adult magazine, and hides it inside his jacket. Jimmy sees him doing it on the CCTV. Jimmy walks over to him, takes the adult magazine out of his jacket, and tells him that he is too young to be looking at that kind of stuff. Just then, Jimmy notices the camper game sticker on Nico's t-shirt. He asks Nico how old he is. Nico tells him that he is 10 years old. After thinking for a moment, Jimmy gives him a camper game magazine for free. Just then, Lucia arrives and pays Jimmy. After getting into the car, she asks Nico if he comes to this store often, because the owner was being unusually friendly with him. Nico denies it. Then he tells Lucia that 10 years ago, a man was murdered in this very store. He learned this from the boys at school. Lucia explains to him that the boys are making up these stories just to scare him. Meanwhile, in 2018, when John arrives at the hospital, Andrea tells him that Peter's condition is currently stable. Just then, John notices a newspaper lying nearby. It contains a report about the attack on Peter at the 24-hour shop. The news says that 32 years earlier, a terrorist attack had also taken place at the exact same location, in which one man was killed and a 10-year-old boy named Lopez had narrowly survived. John is shocked when he reads this. In 2018, Nico finds an envelope inside the magazine he bought from the 24-hour shop. There is a letter inside the envelope. As soon as Nico reads it, he becomes so frightened that he urinates in his pants while standing right there. Lucia, who is standing nearby, is shocked to see this. She reads the letter, which says, "No matter what happens, do not go to that 24-hour shop on your birthday, April 12th. You will die." Lucia is convinced that this is a prank by those boys. So she goes to the school and complains to the principal, demanding strict action against them. Otherwise, she says she will go to the police, which would damage the school's reputation. The principal promises that she will find out the truth and take action. Meanwhile, in 2018, John watches the video of the attack on Peter. Paolo, who is a police officer, promises John that he will catch the shooter. John shows him the newspaper article and tells him that there was also a shootout at the same gas station in 1976, and a 10-year-old boy was present there at that time as well. This is quite strange, but Paolo considers it nothing more than a coincidence. Meanwhile, in 2018, Nico tells his friend Sarah that his mother has filed a complaint against the boys who were bullying him. Just then, they see the principal getting angry at those same boys. The boys explain that they did not write any such letter. The principal warns them that if they are found guilty, they will be expelled from school. On the other hand, John goes to meet the child who survived the 1976 shootout and is now 42 years old. The man Lopez explains that there was no 24-hour shop there at that time. There was only a gas station, and he worked there cleaning cars. On April 12th, a government official's car arrived to get gas. The officer was sitting inside the car while his bodyguard was standing outside. Suddenly, a motorcycle carrying two men pulled up. One of them pulled out a machine gun and started firing. The bodyguard used his own body as a shield to protect me, but he was killed right there by the terrorists' bullets. The attackers fled while shouting slogans, and the officer survived. John tells him that exactly the same thing happened to his friend. And the strangest part is that both incidents happened at the exact same location. There were a total of 5 people present at the location during both incidents, and in both cases, one of them was always a 10-year-old boy. Then Lopez shows John a newspaper from 1955 and tells him that exactly the same kind of shootout also happened at the same location on April 12, 1955. A 42-year-old woman was killed in that incident. John is stunned when he hears this. Meanwhile, in 2018, the same boys who have been bullying Nico send him a fake letter pretending to be from Sarah and lure him into the bathroom. There, they take a photo of him without his clothes. They threaten him, saying that if he complains about them, they will post the photo on social media. That evening, while Nico is walking home, he passes by the same 24-hour shop. Jimmy once again looks at him with that same strange stare. Meanwhile, in 2008, John is thinking deeply about all these incidents. He used to be a mathematics champion, so the statistics surrounding these events are deeply disturbing him. He now studies the 1955 incident. At that time, there used to be a cafe at the location instead of a gas station. On April 12th, the cafe owner's husband, furious about his wife's affair, opened fire inside the cafe with a rifle. His 42-year-old wife, the cafe owner, was killed. At that time, there were also a total of 5 people inside the cafe, including a 10-year-old boy. This is where we learn that John is suffering from a mental illness. Later, when he leaves for the hospital with Paolo, he asks him on the way how old the Russian man who was attacked along with Peter was. Paolo replies, 42 years old. A little later, John, Paolo, and Andrea are sitting in the hospital cafeteria area. Paolo tells them that they have arrested the shooter. Andrea worries that if the shooter turns out to be a minor, he will not receive a very long sentence. But John tells her that he is 21 years old. Hearing this, Andrea and Paolo are shocked. Now John presents his entire theory to them. He says that there were a total of 5 people inside the shop when Peter was attacked. The owner was 53 years old, the child was 10, Peter was 32, the Russian man was 42, and the shooter was 21. Exactly the same kind of incident had happened at the same gas station in 1976. There were also 5 people present at that time, and their ages were 53, 42, 32, 21, and 10. The 21-year-old bodyguard was killed at that time. In 1955, when there was a cafe at the same location, there was also a shootout there on April 12th. There were 5 people there as well, and their ages were also 53, 42, 32, 21, and 10. The 42-year-old cafe owner was killed, and the shooter was her 53-year-old husband. According to this pattern, the shooter who attacked Peter should also have been 21 years old, because the numerical sequence fits perfectly in all 3 incidents. Andrea considers this theory wrong and says that Peter is not even dead yet. Paolo points out that Peter was shot on April 2nd, not April 12th. Andrea reminds John that April 12th is his own birthday. That is why he is fixated on that date. She asks him if he has taken his medication and advises him to go see his psychiatrist. John goes to the bathroom, where he suffers a severe panic attack. Meanwhile, in 2018, Lucia goes to meet the principal. The principal tells her that after investigating, they discovered that the threatening letter was not written by the boys who were bullying Nico. Their handwriting does not match the handwriting on the letter at all. The handwriting on the letter appears to belong to a mature man. The principal believes that Lucia is mentally disturbed because of her divorce and is falsely accusing those boys out of anger. When Lucia angrily threatens to go to the police, the principal assures her that from now on, those boys will not bully Nico anymore. Still angry, Lucia goes straight to the 24-hour shop. She tells the shop owner, Jimmy, that they bought a magazine from the shop that day, and inside it they found a threatening letter saying that if her son came to the shop on April 12th, he would be killed. Jimmy replies that perhaps it was not a threat, but a warning. Then Jimmy tells Lucia that a shootout took place in this same shop 10 years ago on April 12th. So as a precaution, she should prevent her son from coming there on that day. Meanwhile, in 2018, John discovers during his further research that there was also a shootout at this exact location in 1913 when there used to be a bank there. Now John goes to see an eye doctor. He clearly says that he is not there to get his eyes examined, but to get some information because this doctor is the son of the cafe owner who was killed in the 1955 incident. At first, the doctor refuses to tell him anything, but John reminds him that he himself was 10 years old and was inside the cafe when the 1955 shootout happened. The doctor assumes that John is a journalist. John makes it clear that he is not a journalist. A similar incident recently happened to his friend at the exact same location, and there have now been 4 such shootouts there. The first incident happened in 1913. The doctor admits that the place is cursed. He explains that on April 12, 1913, a robbery took place at the bank located there, and 5 people were killed. If John wants to know more, he tells him to meet a woman named Veronica. After that, John heads to a nursing home to meet Veronica. On the way, he passes the same 24-hour shop. As he turns toward the shop to go inside, he sees the reflection of a girl walking in front of him in the mirror above. John goes inside and asks Jimmy what he knows about the history of this place. But Jimmy starts pretending that he knows nothing and refuses to tell John anything. He clearly threatens John, saying that if he does not leave immediately, he will call the police. Meanwhile, in 2018, Nico's friend Sarah tells him that a boy from their class named Martin received exactly the same kind of warning. According to Sarah, when Martin was born, a man suddenly came into the maternity ward and warned his parents not to send their son to the 24-hour shop on his birthday when he turned 10. Nico checks the calendar and realizes that there are only 3 days left until the 12th, which is his own birthday. Lucia has already made a complete plan for Nico's birthday. She plans to take him to a movie and then go out with him. Nico clearly says that he will go anywhere, but he will not go to the 24-hour shop. He then tells Lucia the entire story about Martin that he heard from Sarah. Meanwhile, in 2008, John arrives at a nursing home to meet 95-year-old Veronica. The doctor tells John that despite her age, Veronica's memory is incredibly sharp, which is a miracle in itself. John asks her about the 2013 bank robbery. Veronica tells him that she was only 2 years old at the time. Her father, Jax, was a very desperate man. He had returned from the African War and had brought back a virus infection from there. He became infected and was close to death. Her father did not have enough money for her treatment, so he went to the bank to get a loan. But he had nothing to offer as collateral, so the manager refused to give him the loan. Unable to bear watching his daughter die, Jakes broke down and decided to rob the bank. After that, everything spiraled out of control. The manager also had a gun. During the shooting, the manager was killed. When the customers started screaming, Jakes went into a frenzy and fired multiple shots. Among the victims were 2 people and a 10-year-old girl. In total, he killed 4 people and then, overcome with guilt over the innocent deaths, used the same gun to kill himself. On that unfortunate day, April 12th, there were a total of 5 bodies lying inside the bank. John returns home and studies all 4 cases again. He notices that all the incidents happened on April 12th, except for Peter's case, which happened on a different date. Unable to find any new clue, he becomes extremely frustrated. At the hospital, the doctor tells Andrea that Peter is no longer showing any kind of response. He is in the 4th stage of a coma. The doctor believes there is now no hope of him waking up. Therefore, for humanitarian reasons, he believes it would be better to remove Peter from life support and let him pass away peacefully. Andrea strongly opposes this. She is convinced that Peter will come out of the coma. She messages John and asks him to stop Peter's family from taking such a step. Meanwhile, in 2018, Lucia meets Martin's father and asks him if it is true that when Martin was born, a man warned them not to let him go to the 24-hour shop on his 10th birthday. The man clearly says that nothing like that ever happened. In fact, he says they would have been going somewhere else on April 12th. Lucia assumes that the whole thing is either a joke or a made-up story, but it is obvious from the man's face that he is lying. Later, Lucia gets angry with Nico himself. Meanwhile, in 2008, John builds a model of the 24-hour shop so that he can clearly see the pattern and sequence behind the different deaths. Just then, Andrea arrives and tells him that Paolo and his mother have decided to remove Peter's life support system tomorrow. Tomorrow is April 12th. John now begins explaining the concept behind all these incidents to Andrea. He tells her that it all started on April 12th, 1913, when Jakes killed 4 people and then took his own life. Then exactly 42 years after 1913 in 1955, a 42-year-old woman was killed inside the cafe that stood at the same location. 21 years later, the same pattern repeated itself. A 21-year-old bodyguard was killed at the gas station that stood at the same location. 32 years after those incidents, in 2008, the death of a 32-year-old person is now destined to happen. According to John, that person is Peter. That means Peter's death is almost certain to happen tomorrow, April 12th. This same pattern has continued ever since 1913. John explains that whenever someone dies, someone is also born at the exact same time. The 4 people who were killed in 1913 had 4 different ages. Every time the person is reborn and reaches one of those same ages, that person is killed again. Until all 4 deaths are completed, the curse will not end. And that person is none other than Jakes, who is repeatedly suffering the punishment for his sins through death. Now only one 10-year-old child remains. According to John, after Peter's death, Jakes' soul will enter that child. And on April 12, 2018, another shootout will take place at the 24-hour shop. The 10-year-old child will be killed, and the circle of death will finally be complete. But Andrea refuses to believe this. She does not believe that Jakes is reborn every time and that his old sins are being paid for through his deaths. This would also mean that her lover Peter has the soul of the same killer, Jakes, inside him. This idea deeply upsets her, and she lashes out at John. John says that they have to stop this curse by any means necessary. Even if they cannot save Peter, they have to save the child. In anger, Andrea snaps that, actually, John should have been the one to die instead of Peter because she had asked John, not Peter, to bring the champagne. John should have gone inside the storeroom, not Peter. Then April 12th arrives. In 2018, Lucia is celebrating Nico's birthday. She is supposed to pick Nico up after school, but Nico is so scared that he does not even want to go to school. He has a different plan in mind. Meanwhile, in 2008, John receives a message from Andrea saying that Peter will be taken off the ventilator shortly, so he should come to the hospital. At the hospital, Paolo signs the papers and gives the doctor permission to remove Peter's life support. When John arrives, he gives Andrea the ring box. He tells her that on the evening of the incident, Peter was supposed to put this ring on her finger and propose to her. Andrea puts one ring on Peter's finger and wears the other herself. Crying, she says goodbye to him. John tells Peter that this time he could not save him, but next time, he definitely will. The doctor turns off the ventilator system. At the same time, John runs to the maternity section of the hospital, where Martin has just been born. Seeing Martin's father, John immediately tells him that when his son turns 10, he must not let him go to the 24-hour shop at all on his birthday. Otherwise, he will be killed. But just then, hospital security arrives and catches John. Meanwhile, in 2018, when Lucia arrives at the school to pick up Nico, she discovers that Nico is missing from school. Everyone panics, but eventually they find out that Nico has secretly hidden inside Sarah's mother's car. Lucia becomes furious at Nico for doing this. Meanwhile, in 2018, the doctor discovers that John is a patient with schizophrenia. That is why they come to give him an injection. But John manages to escape from them and drives straight toward the 24-hour shop. On the way, we see a pregnant Lucia being taken to the hospital by her husband for the delivery. At the hospital, a miracle happens. Even after the life support system is removed, Peter starts breathing on his own and slowly comes out of his coma. Meanwhile, John has also reached the 24-hour shop. He sees a 10-year-old boy entering the shop. In the 2018 timeline, Lucia deliberately drives the car to that same gas station. She tells Nico that today she is going to remove his fear from his heart forever. She gives Nico some money and tells him to go inside the shop and buy whatever he wants by himself. Now, John from 2008 and Nico from 2018 are both inside the same 24-hour shop, just in different timelines. Just then, John receives a call from Andrea telling him that Peter has come out of his coma. Hearing this, John is stunned and tells Andrea, "You were right. I am the one who is supposed to die here. My death is written for today, April 12th. In 2018, Nico enters the shop and nervously starts looking around. Meanwhile, in 2008, John writes a warning message on a piece of paper with a pen. Whatever happens, do not come to this 24-hour shop on your birthday, April 12th. You will die. He puts the message inside an envelope. After seeing John again, Jimmy calls the police. John hands the envelope to Jimmy and tells him that 10 years from now, a boy will come into his shop. He must give that boy this envelope and warn him because exactly 10 years later, on April 12th, another shootout will take place in the shop and that same boy will be killed. John also tells him that the moment he sees that boy, he will remember John and recognize him. Jimmy thinks all of this is complete nonsense. He pulls a gun out of the drawer and points it at John. John quickly grabs the gun from him and points it at a young man standing behind him, whom he thinks is a thief, but the young man is not carrying any weapon. Pointing the gun, John forces Jimmy and the young man outside. In the 2018 timeline, Nico notices a man inside the shop hiding a gun behind his back. His intention is clearly to rob the shop. Just then, his accomplice arrives outside on a motorcycle. Now, inside the shop, the thief suddenly pulls out his gun and points it at the shop owner. But the shop owner also pulls out his gun and points it at him. In 2008, John is standing there with his gun pointed at 3 people when a police officer arrives and points his gun at John. He orders John to drop his weapon. John realizes that the complete sequence of 5 people is now in place. The people aged 53, 42, 32, 21, and 10 are all present here. Just then, he notices the mirror above him. In it, he sees Nico. Nico is also looking toward that same mirror in his own time period. John screams at Nico to run. Nico immediately runs toward the door. Shots are fired, but luckily, Nico survives. In 2008, the police officer fires a shot that hits John, and he collapses right there. In 2008, Nico runs out of the shop and toward Lucia, who is waiting outside. Meanwhile, the thieves get on their motorcycle and escape. Their attempt to rob the shop also fails, and this time, no one dies. Lucia hugs Nico tightly and starts crying. Nico tells her that this time, he was not scared. Meanwhile, in 2008, John is taking his last breaths when Andrea arrives. John tells her that he has broken the curse, and with that, he takes his last breath. At that exact moment, Lucia gives birth to a baby at the hospital, whom she lovingly names Nico. And guys, this is where the movie ends. In the end, John becomes the missing number in the pattern and sacrifices his life so that, this time, the body of a 10-year-old child does not end up lying on the floor of the 24-hour shop on the night of April 12th.